Hello, everybody. Welcome to our CakeFu Master Series. Welcome to everybody that's new, everybody that's, I wouldn't say old, but that has been here before. We're very happy to have you guys here with us, and hope you guys can get something really, really great from this training because, as long as you're here, you will. I know you will. So today's training is going to be with Paul Joachim. He's super talented, and I got it right this time, right?
You did. That was awesome.
Yay!
That's perfect.
We've had him on as before, and I slaughtered the name. I'm so sorry.
It was impeccable.
Thank you. Well, welcome, Paul. We're so glad that you're here.
Well, thanks for inviting me again. This is great.
Awesome. Okay, well, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. We want to talk about you and what you do, where you came from, where you're going, and then we'll get into the training part. So,
Sounds good.
All right. So you have been doing cakes for a little while. So
Yeah, I've been sculpting cakes for about 6, 7 years now, and I've been sculpting life-size cakes for 3 years, and that's really where my career's been going. It's mainly the life-size cakes and busts. For example, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a
here,
bust.
let me make you the focal screen.
Here.
Here you go. Isn't that amazing, guys?
So this is something that I sculpted yesterday on for a TV segment.
Awesome.
I had it was like 30 minutes probably. Yeah, I didn't do the entire thing there, but I did a lot of it there. So when I do these live segments, what I'll do is I'll get the base started, and then I'll go ahead and finish it up, on camera, and this is one of the results of doing that.
That's awesome. And we're going to talk a lot about this and what you do with this throughout the training, right? Because I'm sure that everybody's going to want to know, what's inside of it, how do you, support it, how do you keep it from melting, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool.
So great. Let's see. You have been married for 14 years, probably coming close to 15, right?
Actually, 15 came and passed.
Oh, came and passed. Oh, well, congratulations. Yeah. 15 is a big number. That's great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Has it been that long since we did our last training?
It has been, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then, I was going to show you guys.
Oh, yeah, and this is your beautiful wife.
That's my wife. So I've started to accumulate my family.
That is so cool. So cool. So those are actual chocolate figures, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's solid. It's solid chocolate. Each one weighs about 20 plus pounds, between 20 and 30 pounds.
That's amazing. And how do you keep them from, crystallizing or whatever? Is there?
Well, the one I did of my wife is about 6 months old.
Uh-huh.
As you can see, it's holding up great.
Awesome.
There's some little parts that turn a little bit light brown just from the humidity and it drying out a little bit, but otherwise they really hold up great. It's just modeling chocolate, and the shelf. What's the shelf life on modeling chocolate? It's a long time. It's years.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
I expected to last years, and as a lot of you guys know, once modeling chocolate's out in the air, it hardens up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty hard.
That is so cool. Now everybody's going to go and sculpt their family, right? I don't know. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
It is quite the talent that you have, though, to be able to get features correct and all of that. So
Lots of practice.
I'm sure. So what did you do as far as schooling goes? How did you get to be such a great sculptor? How did you, did you just start on chocolate? Did you do other things first?
Let me say, I did a little sculpting in college, mainly in clay. Really, it wasn't my emphasis. It was just one of the things that I did. I actually did more painting. And then after I graduated college, I kind of got out of the art scene. I got married, had a couple kids, started a whole nother business, had nothing to do with art. And then we said 6 years ago, I realized that I could combine my art skills and my passion for food, and that's really where it took off. And I'd really been struggling to find my passion in terms of art and what to sculpt in. You know, I really never got into clay. I really never got into painting. But once I realized that I could do cake, that's when the light bulb went off, and that's when I realized there was something really special about this.
Awesome.
And now it's evolved into cake and chocolate. A lot of chocolate.
A lot of chocolate.
A lot of chocolate. It's usually chocolate cake. Delicious, moist chocolate cake. And now if I'm just sculpting, I usually sculpt in cake and chocolate, but if I'm just sculpting in chocolate, I'll also do chocolate samples like ganache shots or little chocolate cups with ganache with different flavors and different textures. And I really try to kick it up a notch. And I really love giving the audience flavors that they've never tried before. You know, the quality of the chocolate is really high. So I use Davis chocolate, I've used Calibo, and a lot of people are used to lower end chocolate. So when they have this chocolate, they're amazed. You know, it's delicious.
That's awesome. We'll have to have you talk more about adding flavors to your chocolate. That's really cool.
Okay.
That is really cool. Okay, and so you've been on Food Network before and done a few TV things. Talk about the exposure that you've had, and you even have someone that actually does all this for you, lines everything up for you.
Well, that's pretty new. Yeah, on the PR side. So I recently hired a PR person, Jeannie Lee, and she's phenomenal. I mean, she's really amazing. So she's opening up new opportunities in terms of the TV segments and other things that I really wouldn't be able to. Well, I could do it myself, but she's got the network and things that I don't can't do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is that something that you feel is crucial to what you do, or if somebody wanted to do something similar to what you do, is that something you would recommend, or?
I had to. I mean, it's all about exposure, and it's all about people knowing who you are and what you do and what your brand is.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, and what I'm doing, real quick, what I'm doing is so new, and people don't know it even exists. Yeah,
that's exactly it. What you do is so unique to what everybody else does. Usually it's we'll make a cake in our shop, get it all put together, take it to the event. Even if it's a sculpted three-dimensional thing, but for you it's more of entertainment than or just as much entertainment as it is. You want to explain to everybody what it is that you do, okay. in case they don't know what it is that you do. It's pretty spectacular.
The majority of what I do is live at events and parties. So I'll sculpt a life-size piece, a full-size, life-size piece during a party, or maybe I'll sculpt a bus out of cake and chocolate. It could be a corporate event, could be a private party, could be for a chocolate festival. And it's all live in front of an audience, and a big part of it is talking to the crowd, interacting with the crowd, telling them stories. So when I plan these things out, I have to plan about 50% talking, 50% actually sculpting. And it took a lot of practice to be able to go back and forth seamlessly between the sculpting and the talking, and switching roles and having fun. And
and that would be really hard to do.
It took me a couple gigs to just relax and have fun, and like, for example, the last couple gigs I've pulled people out of the crowd and I've had them help me sculpt. And in the beginning I wouldn't have done that because I took it way too seriously.
Well, that's cool.
It's all about fun. Yeah.
That's very cool. All right, so let's get into our training part for you. For those of you that have been with us for a long time, you'll see that these pictures are probably familiar to you. We had a training a while back, but we didn't get very many people on the training, and it kicked people out. This was back when we had a different system, and then there wasn't a replay for those that did get kicked out. So I know that there were not very many people that got to see this, and so we're going to do similar, but Paul has promised for those of you that are here with us again, watching the same or watching Paul again, you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm going to try to
So
mix it up a little bit.
there you go. All right. Okay, so this is your yoga cake, which
Yep.
is so cool.
Well, I've actually been doing yoga for about 11, 12 years. So for me, I've always wanted to do a life-size yoga cake. And when I got this opportunity, it was like, yes, this is really exciting. It's for a local yoga studio, and this is one of their teachers. So, some people say she's lucky, some people say she's not.
Well, and
We
how
had a
how long did she have to stand there is the
It was
question.
amazing. I mean, really, she was just an amazing athlete to be able to even hold that pose right there for more than just a few seconds.
I don't know if I could even get
Not
into that
easy.
pose.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. Even just to get into it, let alone hold it. So you could hold it for like 2 minutes or longer. It was
That's
amazing.
amazing.
So I was easy on her. Throughout the entire process, she would walk up and she would hold a pose, and then I'd let her leave, and she'd be gone for like 30 minutes, and I would sculpt, and then she'd come back, hold the pose for 30 seconds or whatever, and then walk away. Let's say I was working on her hand, I wouldn't make her hold the pose.
Yeah,
I would just have her put her hand out. So
awesome.
so this is part of the planning process. So if I'm going to sculpt a life-size person, one of the first things to do is to measure everything out. So you really want to measure the length of the arms and the legs, really everything, the width, the depth, and I write all that down into a grid.
So you clearly had to have all of this planned ahead of time so that you could have the structure already made before you.
Definitely, the success of doing these is right here. Is I've got to do a great job with the planning and with the armature, and if you do a great job planning, everything else is easy. Everything just falls together.
Right. All right. So you say you measure everything. That one thing you did share was the way that you measure, which is really cool. So we'll go ahead and let
Yeah,
you.
I like using the tailor's measuring tape because it's soft. So you don't want to really use anything that's metal on a person. I don't think they'd be real happy with you if you like scrape them. I try to be nice to the models because they're usually really great and do me a favor. you
So
know.
when you're making these figures, do you actually measure like everything, like their waist size, their
Yeah,
head circumference, all that?
I don't really do the circumference, but I do the width and the height and the shoulders. And when I'm doing cake, this one's a little bit more advanced of an armature. A lot of the ones I've done are more upright. And in that case, think of it as a tiered wedding cake. So every 5 inches, I do a board.
Hmm.
So I'll make sure that I measure the width and the height. And then just over the years, I've gotten to where I can kind of draw it in and know the basic anatomy. But we'll get into a little bit more of that in a bit.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to here, and I wanted you to talk about, I guess, um, how did you know that this was going to actually stand up? This cake is heavy. Chocolate is heavy.
Yeah, it was about 80 pounds of chocolate, and it was 80 servings of cake. So the whole thing weighed, I think ended up weighing about 110 pounds. Well, the funny thing is it ends up weighing about the same as the actual person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does. But in terms of structure, I use PVC pipe.
Uh-huh.
And the difficult part with this is you want to be able to get the base where her leg is, the leg that's mounted to the ground, with the widest, thickest PVC that we possibly could figure out. The challenge is her ankle, because her
Mm.
ankle's narrow. So that was pretty much the limitation. The thickness of the PVC was it couldn't be more thick than her ankle. So that's what I did. So I used PVC. I think it was a 2-inch PVC, and I wanted extra support right underneath by her thigh, right underneath where the main MDF wood that's holding up the cake. And I used 3 or 4-inch PVC for that to be able to give it additional support just on that top portion by her thigh.
Okay, great.
I know it's hard to visualize, but there's a slide coming up that
There will
shows.
be,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so
A bit easier. Okay, so this is what I use to actually make those shapes. You remember you were talking about the shape of the waist, and do I measure that?
yeah.
I use this tool, and this one is an 18-inch one, and I just recently got a 36-inch one, which is amazing. I love the 36-inch one because you can go all the way around the person, and then then I take that shape and I put it down on a large piece of paper and I sketch it out like a silhouette, and then I cut it out, and then I put it on the MDF and cut out the shape with a jigsaw.
Very cool. Okay, so this tape measure, it's thicker. Does it actually stay? This is a flexible, thicker tape measure.
It's a ruler. So
Okay. And
yeah.
where did you find this?
You can get that at Michael's.
Okay.
Michael's national chain. So I believe that's where I got this one. The 36-inch one I found on Amazon. And you could just type in flexible ruler. I think it's also called a graduated ruler. But flexible ruler would allow everyone to find that online.
Okay, great. Awesome. That's a really nice tool right there. I think you could use that in any kind of 3D sculpting.
Not even 3D. I mean, just for basic caking, it's really a cool tool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. That is really true. You could use it for, figuring out the circumference of your cake to, divide it into different portions to decorate and all that kind of stuff. So.
And shapes. I mean, really shapes. So it holds its shape when you flex it.
Oh,
So
does it?
with gum paste or fondant or anything like that, you could flex that ruler, make it into whatever shape you want. You could put it down, and then you could take your razor blade or whatever you're using and cut it out.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this actually holds its shape. There's it's wired inside almost.
Right, exactly. That's what's so amazing.
Ah, cool. That's neat. Okay, so here's the armature that you were talking about.
Okay, awesome. So this armature, again, it was more advanced than a lot of the other armatures that I've done because she's leaning over. So I really wasn't able to take that ruler and go around her body like I was describing. So it took a lot of trial and error and visualization, meaning as an artist, I had to visualize what it was going to look like when it was done. As I was building the wood and engineering the wood. So the engineering part and the artist part really merged together in this one to be able to pull this one off. It was quite challenging. As you can see, the wider PVC on the bottom leg, and again we did that to be able to give it extra support, and then I attached the PVC to the wood using L brackets. And depending on the weight, you're talking about the weight. I think we used like 5 or 6-inch L brackets. They're huge. I mean, those are just a giant. So and it holds a lot of weight. A lot. I mean, there's no way we'd be able to put enough weight on that to be able to bend those brackets.
And the PVC is sturdy enough also? Because I know that when you're working with a thinner PVC, it's pretty flexible. I know the first tall sculpted cake that I ever did, I used a thin PVC, and it was going like this the whole time. It was scary.
There's 2 types of PVC, and one is for like water plumbing, and then I'm not a PVC expert, but I know if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or your hardware store, there's definitely notice that there's 2 types of PVC, and there's one that's really thin, and I don't use that because that's going to be really flexible. It's going to be way too flexible, and this stuff's pretty thick. I mean, you would have a real hard time taking it like with your hand and being able to flex it. It's not going to flex, especially the thick stuff. Like the thigh, no, that stuff's heavy duty. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
look
can
at
I can
whatever that big
imagine.
car, it's not going anywhere.
Awesome. Okay. And then you have to, I mean, if you look at these pictures, you can see that, sideways, yeah, I'm sure that would be difficult enough to get the support and everything to go, the way that you need it to get her put together correctly anatomically. But then you have to
Right.
think of it the other direction too. It has to be, this picture on the right hand side, you have to think about how her arms are going to be and all of that.
Yeah, this isn't for the faint of heart. It really was hard because again, you have to visualize. I mean, there's really no easy method to be able to just measure her out and boom, you got an armature.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I met with her 3 or 4 times to make adjustments to the armature to get this thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
hard.
There's a lot involved in something like this, I'm sure. Awesome. Okay, so then we have, let's see. These are some
Okay.
of the tools that you use. I'm going to talk about
Yeah, in
those.
terms of sculpting, and the majority of it is modeling chocolate, and of course we've got the cake. The cake went into the whole torso area, and then everything around that was chocolate. And these are the tools that I use to really do everything, all the details in terms of the nose and the mouth and little details in the fingers and that type of thing. So you really don't need a whole lot of tools to be able to accomplish what I'm doing.
That's really cool. And do you find these just in your clay section at the store, or what kind of tools
Yeah,
do
in
you
this
use?
case, again, you can buy clay tools at Michael's. They're not quite the quality of these two. These were at my local art store.
Okay.
I don't know if I think I bought them at Sam Flax, and I think there are Sam Flax Pearl Arts and Crafts. That's another national company. I'm sure you can get them there. But if you've got a local art store, that's what I would definitely do. Buy the real deal clay tools. They're not expensive. Each one of these were like $2.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So it's just amazing to see that just these two little tools is about all that you need to make something so spectacular. Clearly, there's artistry involved. So, and then this is the modeling chocolate that you use, and we're going to talk a bit about that.
It is. So what I do when you make these things live, there's really not a whole lot of play in terms of not having everything perfect. But what I'll do is I'll make the modeling chocolate in different stages. So you can see on the left, you can see it's kind of shiny, a little bit darker, and that just means it's softer. And then the one in the middle is kind of medium, and it's got a little bit of firmness to it. You can still knead it, and on the stuff on the right, it's definitely harder. It's not going to be rock hard because you want to be able to still make it pliable and do what you need. And then I'll time it out in terms of, it's pretty difficult because you've got to make adjustments based on the temperature of the venue, and you don't know that until you get there. So, I mean, you could ask, but a lot of times they don't know, and sometimes you don't have the ability to go down and check out the venue either beforehand. So you just need to do the best job you can. But again, what I'll do is I'll use the soft stuff for the different details, and I'll use the harder stuff over there on the right for more structural elements, things that need to hold up.
Very cool. Okay, so do you have 3 different recipes for all of this, or?
I don't. That's a really good question. So to be able to accomplish this it depends on how long the modeling chocolate has been out in the air, and is it in the Ziploc bag. So what I'll do is after I make my modeling chocolate, I'll put it inside the Ziploc bag, and that'll keep it softer longer. And if you take it out of the Ziploc bag and you just put it out into your kitchen or in the open air, it'll start to harden. And putting it in the refrigerator accelerates that process as well.
Okay, great. And then, so you will, with the softer one, you would actually put it in a bag and let it stay soft. The
Right. That would be the goal.
And then the medium one you would leave out a little bit longer, and then the stiffer one would be even more
It's
so.
it's kind of like it varies throughout the entire time that you're sculpting because that one on the left will turn into the one on the right in about an hour. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so it's constantly timing it and constantly making your modeling chocolate and having it softened. And I usually have a microwave with me, and hopefully I'll have an assistant. I don't always have an assistant, but having an assistant's amazing. So that assistant can help me get it timed right, and they can soften the modeling chocolate perfectly, and just watch me and see where I'm at, and they kind of know if do I need that soft modeling chocolate, and they'll make it at that softness, and then as I'm working, I'll go and I'll start picking from the pile, which is the best modeling chocolate to use.
Okay. And does the amount of kneading, do you need certain ones ahead of time, or let some just sit? Does that affect the
It,
consistency?
yeah, it definitely does. I mean, if you need it, it's going to be softer, and from the warmth from your hand as well, it's going to soften it up.
Okay, great. And you have a line of chocolate that you have worked with Davis chocolate, is that right?
Right, that's something that we have been developing. We got together and we created a couverture chocolate, which is it's straight up chocolate. It doesn't have any junk in it. Doesn't have any paraffins or anything like that. It's really good quality chocolate. And we created a formula that will hold up outside in the heat. And I've tested it to 90 degrees. So at first I was pretty skeptical. I was like, how's this going to work? Because it is just chocolate. And there's nothing, there's no, again, any waxes or anything in it that you would think to allow it to hold up. But there's a few things that we took out of your standard chocolate to be able to help it hold up. So as long as it's in the shade, it holds up just impeccably amazing. It's exciting.
That is really something. That is really something. So the Davis chocolate, you can just go and do they have on their website a spot for like heat resistant chocolate or something
I
like
think right
that?
now they're
So
working on it. So the best thing to do is, if you're interested in trying it out, is to go to the website and go ahead and contact them, and
contact them. Okay.
yeah, and then ask for them for the heat resistant chocolate, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that once it's
Well, the big thing with that is, I mean, it works amazing, and one of the interesting things that we realized through the process was it's the UV light, it's the direct sun that breaks down the chocolate. And
Oh,
even if,
really?
yeah, even if it was cold, even if it was like 56 degrees outside, if it's outside, that UV light breaks it down. So as long as you're in the shade, it works amazing.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
great. All right. So here we have your work in progress.
Okay, so this is a couple hours into it, and again, she wasn't standing there the whole time. So we just got a nice photo here.
Awesome.
Uh, Again, in the torso, that's all the cake. And then you can see as I'm building up that modeling chocolate around the PVC to get that anatomy going.
Okay. So right there in the torso is the cake. Do you cover it with anything else before you start putting on the modeling chocolate, or just start with the modeling chocolate?
Well, usually, well, in terms of the MDF, you've got to separate the MDF from anything that's edible.
Yeah.
So parchment paper or freezer paper.
Okay.
I find that like wax paper tends to rip. It doesn't hold up from the moisture, and it's a little bit thin. So
Hmm.
I really like using the freezer paper.
Very good. Okay. And then down on the bottom of her, just her, like her belly area,
Oh,
that's
okay.
where the MDF is, and you just start adding the modeling chocolate, is that?
Yeah, I add the modeling chocolate to the base, and I use glue, and meaning chocolate glue. So chocolate is an amazing glue. You wouldn't think of chocolate and glue, but it really is phenomenal. So what I'll do is I'll melt down chocolate at a low temperature, and then I'll spread it on the bottom of the MDF. And my trick is to take a piece of modeling chocolate and put it in the refrigerator for a little bit, or the freezer, and then bring it out and press it up underneath, and it sets that chocolate glue immediately.
Just a lot faster because it's cold.
Right. Right. So the cold it hardens up the chocolate. I actually did that on Food Network Challenge.
I was just gonna say, there are so many times where us as cake decorators were watching these people trying to put Rice Krispie treats or something up against there, and it's all falling down. And
I know. Just when I watch those shows and they're not doing it, and I was like, it's so easy.
Yeah. When I did my it wasn't Food Network, but my show, I was lucky enough to not lucky enough, but I just had a wedding cake, so it was just stack it up. But I think I dreaded the idea of having to put together something that the studio is hot, and I'm sure that these are problems that people don't expect to have. But then, if you're not equipped with the knowledge that you have because you do it so often, I think that's intimidating to some.
Well, I find it goes back to the planning. I mean, that's why I did well on Food Network Challenge was I plan. I mean, I planned the heck out of that thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many hours I spent planning and planning and planning. And Edna De La Cruz and I, we practiced and we made a half of a whole piece beforehand.
Wow.
Practice. So a lot of that experience was translated into doing these gigs and doing these live performances, and again planning and really making sure that there's nothing left in terms of unneeded risk. You want to eliminate all the risk you can possibly imagine, so you can just sit back and have as much fun as possible.
Awesome. That's great. So Armature is coming along nicely. And here's one that's very much closer to done.
Right. Yeah, it's done there. So as you can see, I got in everything. I got in the hands and the feet.
Awesome. And then even down on the bottom, you've got the detail work for the base.
A really great artist friend of mine was working the party as well. She is a body painter, and she paints faces. Like you can see on the model, she painted the model's face.
And who's that?
I will send you a link.
Okay.
I'll send you a link of her information.
Okay.
But it's Bombshell Body Art, Shannon Holt.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah. So she's a phenomenal artist. She's amazing. And we were sitting there brainstorming, and she jumped in and started doing that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was thrilled. I was like, that is amazing. That's awesome. It just looks phenomenal.
And is that with chocolate?
It's a ganache. Yeah.
Oh, ganache.
Yeah. She just took one of the ends of her paintbrushes, at the hard end, and started just drawing right into the ganache and did all these swirls. And it just went so well. I thought it was beautiful.
Cool.
It was a beautiful finish to the piece.
So and how did you decide on the shape of that base? Was that intended for structural purposes, or?
It was more structural.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't want it wobbling in any way, shape, or form. So that's a real big, thick piece of wood too. So it ended up being really nice and working out great. And plus, I really like the curve and the shape of it. It's not typical.
Uh-huh.
I think it added to some of the character of the overall piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you can see that, you've got the shape of her, everything, her hair even, and, I just am blown away by the detail that, that goes into this. And, I love how it even looks like like the hammered metal kind of look. Is what I imagine.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's awesome you say that. I mean, that's always my goal, is to make it look like a sculpture. I mean, that's what it is. I just happen to be using edible ingredients, but it really is a real, true sculpture.
It's very cool. All right, so you guys can see the final product. There's another angle, and the braid in her hair and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, the braid was fun. Everyone started freaking out when I got the braid in there. So it was fun. It was one of the last things that I did, and everybody was wondering and wondering how am I going to do her hair. It was actually pretty straightforward. It was just a couple of strands of. I just rolled out some Malian chocolate, put it together like a braid, and then twisted it, and then pulled it so the top was thicker and the bottom was thinner, and placed it on the head portion, and boom, it was there. And then hung it off. You can see where it's hanging off her shoulder, just like it actually is in real life.
That is spectacular, and to see how the support that's inside of her is so amazingly planned out, because it looks like the front of her is so much heavier and that she's just going to topple over. So you clearly had to think ahead on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, and also when you make these armatures, the other hard part is you can't be off an inch, and you can see if you're off an inch here or there, it's just not going to work. So, and again, that's when the engineering meets the artist, and you've really got to combine both of those skills to be able to pull this off.
Yeah. So, did you take any, engineering type of classes or anything like that, or just really?
No, I work with a great guy, David, and he's a carpenter, and he helps me out. So basically, I go to him, and we sit down. We'll go over the plan. I'll give him the measurements, and I'll draw out everything, and he cuts everything out for me, and then we start to build it, and then we'll start making adjustments, and I'll cut off half an inch here. I mean, I can tell you right now that I don't think I've ever built an armature where it didn't need adjustments afterwards. It always needs adjustments based on, you just have to stand back and visualize it finished. And you look at a shoulder piece, like I cut out a little bit of a shoulder, and you know what? That's not going to work. You got to cut the shoulder and make adjustments. And it's kind of hard to understand, but once you go through the process, it's just tweaking, and you just got to get it just right. And again, if that armature is not perfect, you're not going to have a good day.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that, you do a lot of times have to adjust things, because, for those of us that are, especially those of us that are new to 3D sculpting and that type of a thing, to know that, it's not going to be perfect the first time you get it put together, that, you do have to make those adjustments, and you do have to change things up.
Yeah, don't be shy. Just because the armature didn't come out, if your mind's saying cut it, go with your instinct. And
Awesome.
I know this piece is really big, but you could scale it down and do the same thing, and it'd be a lot easier actually, because you don't have to worry about the physics and the engineering behind having to hold up 8 pounds. Yeah. So let's say you do a small version of this and it weighed 10 pounds, you can much easier.
Yes. I'm sure.
And very doable for someone that's never tried something quite this huge.
Awesome. Well, it is spectacular, and I don't know if anyone would ever try to attempt something so life-size and huge, but you can do this smaller scale and use the same the same general rules. Okay,
Yep.
and then you're cutting the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to get an image of it so you can actually see the cake portion.
Prove that it's cake, right?
Exactly. Prove that it's cake. Again, in this case, her whole torso from her shoulders all the way down to the butt was all chocolate cake with raspberry preserves and chocolate ganache.
Very cool. That looks delicious. I'm sure it tasted delicious.
I put a huge effort into how it tastes as well. It's not just about how it looks. It's just for everybody here. Everyone puts so much passion in what they're doing, not just the way it looks, but people want to be able to eat it and enjoy it. It's got to taste great.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, so you were talking a little bit at the beginning about flavoring. So what kinds of flavorings do you add to your chocolate? And is it if you add moisture to chocolate, it seizes. Is this stuff that you just add to modeling chocolate
No,
or to actual chocolate? And how is it
yeah, I don't think
something
I'd
you can
ever
add?
added it to modeling chocolate, but I do add it to ganache,
Okay.
and they're oil based.
Uh-huh.
So I buy them at a local store, D and G occasions. I know they've got an online store, and they're these little vials of flavor, high quality, all kinds of different flavors. Raspberry, orange, really anything you can think of.
Do you have a favorite?
I really like raspberry. Yeah, I just think raspberry and chocolate go so well together,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
yeah, they complement. And then another trick that I do is I'll put a little bit of salt. I love Himalayan pink salt, and I'll put a little
Mhm.
salt in my ganache, and wow. I mean,
Salt,
wow.
salt and good salt makes such a huge difference
Right.
to desserts.
You do not want to use table salt. No. I mean, I guess it would add a little bit, but the Himalayan pink salt or good quality real sea salt is going to make all the difference in the flavoring of your chocolate. And it really does, it's amazing. You guys need to try it. And
Awesome.
it gives it a whole nother level of deliciousness.
Yeah, well, it's like a salted caramel or caramel, I guess. It just adds such a different dimension and all the difference. Awesome. Okay, so let's get onto our questions. I know we have a bunch of them.
Okay.
So, for those of you that are wanting to ask Paul a question and might have missed that part, down below this screen, there is a box that says Ask a Question. So go ahead and type in your questions there. If you don't see that screen, go ahead and refresh your page. It should be there for everybody. But if not, just refresh your page and it will be there.
Yeah, just to let you know, I don't see the.
Oh yeah, we're on a different screen than everybody
Okay,
else. I should have told you that at the beginning. So
that's cool.
yeah, I'll ask the questions for them.
Okay.
Let's see. Our first question was where did it go? Okay. Our climate is very humid. I would like to know the ganache recipe for cake frosting, which will not be sticky.
Let's
So
see. Hmm. Well, I'm from Florida, so I've got lots of humidity. I mean, the ganache recipe. Let me see. Hold on one second here. So I make huge amounts. So I don't know how it would translate into something that's a little bit more palatable.
mhm.
Um, but I use 120 ounces of chocolate to 10 and a half cups of cream.
That's a lot.
That's one of my batches, and I usually make several of those for what I'm doing. So
Yeah,
that it's a
well,
lot,
for something that massive, you would need to.
right? But you can definitely scale that down. But again, it's 120 ounces to 10 and a half cups. So I know that's
Okay.
one, but
Okay, so probably about 12 ounces per cup, if my ratios are right.
yeah, eight. It would be eight. Let's see, let me get my calculator out. 8 times 10.5. Whoops. 84 ounces of cream to
Okay.
120 ounces of chocolate. So you can see that the cream to chocolate ratio, there's a little bit more chocolate. And I do that because I need it for structural purposes, and it hardens up really nice. So what's amazing about the ganache recipe is that when it does harden up, it doesn't get hard. It's really pleasant to eat. And that's the balance, is you want it really amazing to eat, but at the same time you want it to be able to sculpt with it too.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Okay. Here's someone asking about whipped cream. Do you know much about whipped cream?
I mean, I make whipped cream for fun.
Someone's
And
asking
what was the
about
question?
the question is, how do you make whipped cream not melt as soon as it gets to room temperature? I tried gelatin, but after 2 days it tastes funny.
Hmm. Well, when I make my whipped cream, put it in my my KitchenAid, and it's just cream, heavy cream, and sugar. And the trick is to be able to whip it up to that right consistency. Because if you over whip it, it'll dry it out, and you just won't get, and it won't be pleasant to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And what that person might be doing, and sorry, I can't see their name, but they may not be.
Vicky. Sorry about
okay,
that.
Vicky. You may not be whipping it long enough, and then after you whip it, go ahead and put it into the refrigerator, and that'll definitely help it set.
Yeah.
And after a while, of course, it is going to melt outside.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I'd like to add is the thing about whipping cream is that it doesn't last for very long. It's not going to last forever. It'll last a little while, but it won't last forever. And then you did say after 2 days it tastes funny. That I would say is probably just cream takes on, or fat takes on the taste of whatever it's around. And
right.
so if you've got it in, kind of a funky smelling room, or if you've got other things in your refrigerator, that more savory smells or something, it's going to take on everything that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And chocolate does the same thing.
Yeah.
Chocolate on whatever, whatever smells are around it, it's going to take it on.
Yeah, it's that fat content that's there. It just soaks everything in. So. Okay, we have a fun question here. Elizabeth Merrick. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello.
She's one of our CakeFu masters. She says, "What is your favorite part about working with chocolate?"
Chocolate's amazing. Wow. I mean, chocolate is just you can play with it. It tastes amazing. You get your hands dirty. It tastes amazing. It's smooth. It tastes amazing. I just can't come up with a better medium than chocolate. 'Cause you can sculpt with it. You can eat it. I mean, what else do you want? It's perfect.
Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? You get the artistic side of being able to, sculpt and do all that, beautiful stuff, and then it tastes so good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I'm terrible with names sometimes. I'm sorry. I think it's Rocio. I think says, "Are the arms made of cake too? How do you support the cake on the arms or any place like that?" Thank you.
Yeah. In this case, there is just chocolate on the arms. The cake portion is just in the torso.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine you could get very much cake into an arm anyway because of how thin, it is.
You'd have to use MDF wood. You really wouldn't be able to practically do that with the PVC.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be nothing to lay the cake on.
Yeah.
But in theory, you could do the arms, cut them out in MDF wood, put chocolate underneath to be able to get the anatomy right, and then cake on top. That'd be one way of doing it. That'd be hard, though.
That would be really hard, and especially with the weight of it and everything, worry about that MDF breaking or,
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I've never had an MDF piece break. That would be horrifying.
Yeah.
But as long as you're using it comes in different thicknesses, so as long as you're using the proper thickness, it should never break.
Okay. All right. So, but if you're probably you're better off just sculpting it out of chocolate and not worrying about the cake in that portion.
I would agree, definitely.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Do you ever use black iron pipe or copper for structures? If not, why? Her name's Tracy.
Okay. Hey, Tracy. I just use PVC, and it's a really simple answer. It's cheap, and it's easily accessible. I mean, you can just run down to Home Depot. I think they're open till like 10 o'clock, some crazy hours, and they open up at 6. And so you can just jump in the car, go down there 2 minutes away, and you can get the PVC. And I do agree that some more rigid pipe would be beneficial, but I haven't tried that. And again, it's just because PVC is what I taught myself to do, and it's so easily accessible, and it's easy to cut as well. With the copper, I can't imagine that being nearly as easy as PVC. You can use just normal hand tools to be able to cut that PVC. And the copper, I think you need something more industrial.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not. I haven't done it before. So.
All right. Yeah, I have actually used the pipe before for holding up things.
The copper?
Yeah, it works. It works well, and you can use flanges to to screw into the wood and all of that. And it's a really good support system. You need to make sure that you cover it properly because it is not food safe at all. So cover it with a saran wrap, and then maybe some modeling chocolate, or ganache, and then some freezer paper. Just make sure it's really well covered because that's the last thing you want to do is contaminate a cake.
Real quick, the same thing with PVC is PVC is not food safe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so you got to make sure that anything that's going to be eaten is covered.
Yeah, very, very good point. And then the one downside and a benefit to PVC I'm seeing is that you can make those adjustments if you need to. If you're using the pipe, once it's cut, that's it. So the adjustments can't be made in the final product. So yeah.
One interesting thing is I don't use the flange. Because you can do the flange technique with the PVC as well, but I always use L brackets.
Do you just find it's more sturdy?
It's not necessarily more sturdy. It gives me more flexibility, and I don't mean the flex in the PVC, but what I could do is I could cut the PVC at an angle, and then with the L brackets, I can brace it, and I can have a nice angle going for the PVC. With the flange, you can't do that. It's got to be straight up and down. So that's a big benefit to using the L brackets over the flange.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Okay, here's a question from Lisa Fitch. She says the upper thigh portion PVC appears to be floating over the lower leg PVC. How is that attached for strength and structure?
So the leg that's in the air?
I think she's talking about the lower leg, how there's the wider PVC. It looks as if it's just kind of floating there. Is it really structurally supporting that PVC? And if
definitely.
So, how? Yeah.
It's attached just like we've been talking about. It's attached with those L brackets. So I use L brackets and real specific 8-inch. It's called number 8 screws. So I think they're 1/2-inch number 8 screws that I use.
Okay, and you've bracketed them into onto the MDF.
Correct. Yeah. So one half of that L bracket will be into the MDF, and the other half will be into the PVC itself.
Okay. And does it actually connect to the longer, skinnier PVC?
The longer, skinnier PVC, I think what I did was I put in a long screw, like a 2-inch screw. So it went right through the wide portion into the narrow portion.
Oh, okay. Great.
And that gave it extra structure, extra strength.
Perfect. Okay. Someone asked, what happened to this hard work after delivered? And that's something you don't really deliver it, you make it on site, right?
Right.
And then she said, did it end up in the trash?
Well, they ate it.
Yeah, you eat it. You eat it. It's chocolate.
They did serve it towards the end of the party, but after that, you still have this structure, and they always ask for help. Like, what are we going to do? How do we get this out of the house? So I always have to brainstorm and figure out exactly, because I do leave it there. I don't take it with me, so I do leave it at the party. And I let the customer take care of disposing of whatever's left.
Very great. Okay, so the next question is, what do you use to cut the big pieces of PVC?
Um, oh, what is it called? Again, I use my friend Dave's stuff. um, it's one of those saws. It's table saw. So,
Okay.
or it's boy, I guess a table saw is one of those ones that you push it, but it's
Uh-huh.
a handle, and you go like this.
Oh, okay.
You know, I
Mm-hmm.
apologize for my my poor knowledge of
Yeah.
power.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm the same way. I know what a table saw is, but that one that has the lever, I don't.
Right, it's got that lever, and it
Yeah.
comes down, and it's just big enough to be able to do the 4 inch.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things where you have to cut one half, turn it,
Turn
and then
it and
cut the
cut
other
the other
half.
half. Okay. All right. Okay. This is an interesting question. Jean Ann says, every time I use preserves, my cake gets soggy. That would be a disaster in a sculpture. What do you do to keep that from happening?
I'm not sure why the cake's getting soggy. I don't know what type of preserve she's using. So I use, I would say, about 1/4 inch of preserves, and then I let it set. So I'll have my sheet cake. I'll cover it in preserves. I'll put it in the refrigerator, and I'll let it set. And then I go over that with a layer of ganache. I say about another 1/4 inch or more. The ganache is always going to be a little bit thicker than the preserve layer, and I find it works really great. I'm not quite sure why it would get to. I guess the bottom line with to answer your question is the ganache. The ganache is creating that structure.
Hmm.
That ganache is going to be between the layers. That's filling, and then it's going to be on the outside as well. And
Okay.
that ganache recipe hardens up to that perfect consistency to where it's going to give it structure, but yeah, it's still really great to eat.
Perfect. Okay. And if you're using a really soft preserve, you could I'm pretty sure I've done this before. You add a little bit of gelatin to it, make it,
Okay.
a little bit more solid so it's not liquid.
Yeah,
Uh,
gelatin would work. I could see that. You just have to be careful
yeah, you
with
don't
it.
want to add too
Feel
much
it in.
and
Right.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Um Here's a very good question from Jolene. She says, what are some key things to look for when trying to shop for high quality chocolate?
I would look at the ingredients, and you just want the basic ingredients. You just want cocoa butter, sugar, and most chocolates are going to have soy lecithin and vanilla, and that's about it. I mean, there shouldn't be anything else in it besides those ingredients that I just listed.
Okay, so look for good ingredients or lack
Yeah,
of extra ingredients.
right. And then something else that's important to me and important to a lot of people is fair trade. So if it says chocolate has a problem with just the business of chocolate can get a little bit unethical. And if you look for chocolate that's fair trade, it, it, it definitely gives you a much better opportunity to make sure that the people that are harvesting the chocolate and they're getting fair wages, and it's a real good thing to do. So look for that fair trade label.
Yeah, that's something that, some people don't really take into account, but it is important.
It is, yeah. So the chocolate that I use is fair trade. Davis chocolate is fair trade. That's that
Perfect.
bean, the bean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Let's see. Someone says, Paul, do you ever get a piece of the cake? And just wondering if you ever had one tipping, what balancing tricks do you use?
If I ever had a cake, well, occasionally I eat the cake. You know, as cakers, we're surrounded by cake all the time. So, and I've had it so many times. Yeah, once in a while, I like to mix it up a little bit, just so I'm not making the same cake over and over and over again. But I know my clients like one recipe so much, it's hard to vary from what everyone loves. But yeah, I will occasionally, but not a whole lot. In terms of tipping, I got to be honest with you. If it's tipping, you're in trouble. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're doing this live and it's tipping, there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
You just make sure it doesn't happen. I mean, I've had a few cake disasters in the past. It's been a long time, thank God. 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, I made a cake for my sister, and I didn't really know what I was doing yet, and I didn't refrigerate it, and I used buttercream. I'm not a buttercream master by any means, and I used buttercream instead of the chocolate ganache that I've been talking about all day, and it was for her 40th birthday. I made her a wheelchair cake. So let's just say that it would look like a wheelchair that had crashed by the time we got there. And there wasn't a whole lot I could do about it because it was a 4-hour drive.
Oh.
So, yeah, right. Unrefrigerated 4-hour drive.
Yikes. Oh, no.
And again, I'm here in Florida, so it didn't. But hey, it worked out great. It tasted amazing, and everyone thought I did it on purpose.
Hey.
So hey, you just got to make the best of it.
Yep, that's true. You just, oh, gosh,
You work
those
with you work with
disasters
the
are
elements.
tough. Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
are.
Okay, we're gonna only be able to take one more question, but I think this is a pretty good one.
Okay.
Diane Holgate says,
Hey, Diane.
does your modeling chocolate get greasy when you make it, and do you knead it in or wipe it off? And do you use any of the colored confectioner coatings?
Okay, that's a really good question. If you overheat the chocolate, the cocoa butter will start to seep out, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to reincorporate that. So if that oily cocoa butter gets on the top, you just need to let it set. So you don't want to discard it because you'll lose a lot of that butter and that
Mm-hmm.
moisture, and you don't want that to happen because your buying chocolate will become brittle, and you definitely don't want that. So again, what I'll do is I'll knead it, and yeah, it'll get all over your hands and everywhere, but I'll knead it and let it sit. And then if you want to accelerate the process, you could put it in the refrigerator or the freezer, but it gets a little more technical once you do that. I would just leave it out in room temperature and
Okay.
let it sit, and you'll notice that it'll change, the tone of it will change, and you'll notice it kind of melting together and hardening up. And once it hardens up, you can re-knead it, and you'll be fine. You might have to do it twice, but it's doable.
Okay. Okay, so
One
it
of
is fixable. So to avoid that though, don't overheat your chocolate.
it's
Is what
all
you're
about
saying.
the heat. If you overheat the chocolate, it starts to separate, and you'll get that white cocoa butter separating from the chocolate.
Okay, but if it does separate it, that's not the end of it. You can knead it
It's not
back
the
in.
end. Yeah, you can definitely reincorporate it. It's just a
Okay.
pain.
All right, and then the other half of her question was, do you use any of the
Right.
colored confectioner coatings?
I did this past week. I don't normally, but I didn't have any white chocolate colored ready to go, and all I had
Mm-hmm.
was the CK. And don't ask me what the recipe was. I just asked some. I think Sarah Myers gave me a great answer, and she told me what to do, and a couple other great cakers chimed in as well. I just posted to Facebook and said, "What's the recipe?" And I'm not crazy about it. It melts differently, and I find it much more difficult to use than
Okay.
than the real deal, than the real chocolate, including the white chocolate. I think it's a lot easier to be able to take the colors and incorporate that into white chocolate versus the dark. Or, I'm sorry, versus the confession.
Confectioner's coating. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, well, that was a lot of really good information.
Well, thank
Okay.
you.
And so, for those of you that are wondering about Paul and what's coming up with him, let's see, June 6th is Raw, which is, he sent me a link to it, which was really cool. I didn't get that up on here, but it's basically a bunch of artists that get together, all different fields of artistry, and do, a big
Yeah,
get
big
together
shindig.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a party.
that's
It really
awesome.
is. And it's all different mediums. It's fashion designers and musicians and painters and miscellaneous people like me, and all getting together and just having fun and inviting your friends and having a great night.
That is really cool. That's a
Next,
neat concept. I really do like that. And a good way to, get out there some more. Um,
that is.
and then on June 8th, you have a local TV appearance that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I'm going to be
So,
on a local news segment, and I'll be
yeah,
announcing that the day before. So next
today.
Friday, I'll be able to announce who I'm doing it for and when and where.
Okay, and you're going to announce that on like your Facebook or your website, or where's that?
On Facebook, so facebook.com/artedibles.
Okay. And then let's see, Busch Gardens in June on
Yeah,
June 21st.
yeah,
That's
I'm really excited
really
about
cool.
that's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, food festival. That's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, it's great.
uh,
I've got 3 days to sculpt, so it should be fun.
oh wow, cool. Very cool. And then sometime in July or August, there will be a national television appearance.
So I have to be a little bit vague about it, but I'm not allowed to say the network, and I'm not allowed to say the show either. Uh, but
Okay.
but I will be on national TV again over the summer. And what's interesting about it is not a food show.
Oh really?
We're- yeah, so it's something completely different. It was fun.
I'm
Um,
intrigued. Well, and I'm sure
so
you'll be announcing this on on
I
your
will
Facebook page as well.
I
So,
definitely.
yeah, if you want to keep up with Paul and everything that's going on with him, you can find his website artedibles.com. You can find him on his Facebook page, facebook.com/artedibles, or Twitter. Um, or I guess it would be Art Edibles on Twitter as well. So great. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for coming and joining us and doing this.
Well,
Uh,
thank you.
so we're so glad to be able to get a little bit of your expertise and your knowledge. You definitely have a lot a lot in that brain of yours. We're
Thank you
glad to
so
get a
much.
little bit of it.
Well, I appreciate you building this platform and allowing us to be able to share, and it's awesome.
Well,
So,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for, just this is really fun. So I guess we will see you guys all next time.
Okay.
Okay, bye.